Hello, everyone. How are you? Did you have a good lunch? Very filling. I think I had too many things. Very full. So I am Carol Young. I'm senior project manager and consultant, and I would like to introduce Gerald for our first successful session. Whoa, for the afternoon. So we are basically going to talk about the 10 coaching skills for every project manager, things that they can use, presented by Gerald Eefting. And Gerald has over 30 years of business consulting, leadership, and project management experience. Gerald is PMP certified and is a certified coach and Coactive Training Institute of the Coactive Training Institute called CTI. Gerald also has his ProSci Change Management certification and a certified human behavioral consultant utilizing the DISC model for behavior. We will have questions and answers throughout, and in the end, it is a very interactive session. As Gerald has informed you previously, he'd like you to fill out the form that we had given you. And so please welcome Gerald to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks for attending. I'll make a kind of a apology right up front. I usually wander around. So standing behind here is really awkward, but I know they're taping it and there's lights and there's the mic, so I won't be able to move around. So I apologize because I usually just like walking and being right down with you. So for those of you that just came in, what this is I wanted to give everyone an ability to use a coaching tool that I've utilized in the past, and I utilize in different ways in different groups. But what this is kind of a really high-level overview, and some of it's more detailed, about what a project manager does, what a program manager does. And you can see that things like managing the work, schedule and budget, strategy and scope, resources, manage change, etc. And so what I want you to do, and you don't need to do it right now, but to rank from 1 to 10 in each of the blue boxes, including communication at the bottom, where you are in your current project or how you're feeling about life in general in your career, whatever it is that relates to you, a rank of 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely brutal or totally unsatisfied, versus 10 being fully satisfied or absolutely great. Now, it's not that you want 10s in every box. That's not the design of it. What it is, though, is it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, well, I'm 7s everywhere, or I'm 8s in this area, and I'm a 5 down in here. And so all it allows you to do as a tool to say, okay, from a self-analysis point of view, I can now take this and say, oh, my managed people is kind of lower than all the rest. How can I build my skills up? How can I get help in that area? How do I surround myself with somebody else that can really bring that to the team? So that's just a little tool that I wanted to share with you. It's kind of a bonus for you. And if I'm more than happy to go through some of that with you later on. I'm going to be around all afternoon. I'll stay through to the kind of the mingling session at the end. So I'm more than happy to kind of talk through, well, okay, well, how do we work this? How can I address this area? More than happy to do that. But you could also just take it away and say, okay, these areas I need to work on. What training do I need? How can I build those skills? Okay, so that's just a tool for you. This is just a high level. The one thing you will recognize very quickly is even when you're managing scope, managing budget, managing people, managing your steering committee, there's one constant thing, and it's the people. And really, that's what we're going to concentrate on today. One of the questions I have for you right away is, what's the difference between coach and consulting? Coaching and consulting. What would you think? Really quickly. Spit it out. You got to help me out. We're going to be doing this all day. When I say coaching, what do you think of? Collaboration. What else? Helping. Motivating. Development. Sorry? Yeah. Mentoring. Okay. All right. So all those things have little flavors from coaching. When I say consulting, what do you think of? Helpful. Collaboration again. Deliverables. Sorry? Advice. Sorry? Expert. So for the definition for today, and everybody's got their own perspective on it, and that's great. There's no problem at all. But from a coaching perspective, it's where you're helping somebody else come to the answers. Consulting, a lot of times, is giving them the answer, giving them the expertise. So, and what confuses a lot of the whole story is the whole coach-like. And a lot of organizations call it coach-like. And all they're really trying to do is soften the skills and making sure that you're coaching people to be better. So some of those skills we're going to go through today, and it's going to be all based on one foundation. And we'll go through that right now. The foundation is going to be communication. And for those that'll be keeping track today of time and that kind of thing, we're going to spend a lot of the time in communication because that's the base. And we're going to talk about the different pieces of it. And then we'll talk about asking open-ended questions and being curious and goal setting and through the rest of those. Fair? So that's where we're going. We're going to talk about communication. This is a sign that I saw a number of years ago. And I'll read it for those that maybe are in the very back. Rattlesnakes may be found in this area. They are important members of the natural community. They will not attack, but if disturbed or cornered, they will defend themselves. And I got to thinking about this a little while ago, so I think we can change it a little bit. People may be found in this area. They are important members of the natural community. They will not attack. Well, mostly they won't attack. But if disturbed or cornered, they will defend themselves. How many know that that's true? If they're cornered, they are going to probably defend themselves. I believe there's three things that everybody needs. And I don't have this on a slide, so if you want to write this down, feel free to. First one, and this is what you need, this is what your family needs, this is what your project needs, each member of your project. First one, be safe. They need to feel safe. Safe in themselves, safe in expressing who they are, safe in their family, safe in their community. We heard that a lot this morning. Safe in your project team. First one, feeling safe. Second one, that they belong. They need to feel like they belong. They belong with their family. They belong in their community. They belong in your project team. That they belong. Third one, that what they do and who they are matters. That they matter. See, a lot of times we go through life and we don't feel respected, we don't feel et cetera, but a lot of times people don't feel like they matter. So they need to feel like they matter to their family, to their partner, to their children. They matter in your project. They have a role, they have a responsibility, they have a piece that they have to do, and they're the only ones that can do it. Now you can hire somebody, but they're the ones that you have to do very specific tasks so that they feel safe, they belong, and that they matter. Communication. It's essential in every part of our life. Every part. And it requires interaction. Because one-way communication is a lecture. And I don't want to be lecturing today, so I need your help. One-way communication is called a lecture. And by the way, if you're a parent, it doesn't work real well with your children. Your communication skills, especially as a PM or as a leader as a whole, equals your ability to succeed. Your communication skills equal your ability to succeed. If you're not communicating with your team, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, How productive are they? And then the last piece I wanted to just highlight for you, communication involves feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotions. You can't get away from it. We all are emotional people. I have a friend of mine who says, life would be absolutely fantastic if it weren't for the people in it. But people have emotions. There's a Dr. Albert Morabian who did a study, and a lot of people misinterpret the study. They think it's overall communication, but the study was communication of your attitudes, of your feelings, communication of what you're thinking. The 7-38-55 rule. 7% of communication is done through verbal communication. And this is of your feelings, of what people are reading in what you're saying. 7%. The 38% is the tonality of your voice. I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here. Right? That's your tonality. And then 55% 55% is your body language. So think about that. There's a saying that what you're saying is not what people are hearing. What you're saying is not what people are hearing. But what you're portraying is what people are hearing. Think about that one. What you're portraying with your body, with your tonality, and then 7% of what you're saying actually shares what you're thinking. So let's play a game. Yes. Does it change when it's virtual? It does, but it all depends on what virtual means. I've done some talking, and you have people around a big table. You can't read body language. So that's a harder one. But if everybody's individual, you can read it. Now, a lot of my coaching I've done in my past is actually just over the telephone. And in coaching training, you can actually start picking up hesitations and people talking a little bit differently. They slow down or they hesitate, or you can hear a little different tone in their voice and you say, what's going on? What's happening? So there are different ways, but body language, of course, is the one you can't do over a telephone. Does that kind of answer? You're good? Tone goes up, and then but again, it's a matter of you asking around that. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's why it's so hard, right? If you think of a text, there's absolutely nothing. That's why texting is one of the worst communication tools there are, and yet people break up over texts. Their relationships, you laugh, it's true. People break up over texts, right? They break up relationships. So if I go like this, what are people reading? Sorry? Impatient? Okay. What else? Disinterested? Bored? Yeah, resistance, right? A lot of times when you cross your arms, people are closed up. That's what you kind of think. If somebody's going like this, right? They're impatient. What else is up there? This one. It's kind of a power position, right? Or like this, right? Those are all different body languages we read, right? I often do this, and I brought some up here. In smaller groups, I take time and actually I give everybody a placard. Everybody has a little card, and on it they have different things. One is act normally. This one says engage in conversation, but only talk while you are within 1 foot of a person. Move very closely to the other individual. So it's really funny watching somebody do this, because if you're talking to somebody really close, what do? They back up. You keep moving up. They back up, right? That's your personal space, but then that's a part of the read. The other thing is fold your arms and listen. You can have conversation, but fold your arms. Second one, talk with anger on your face, but not in your voice. This one is very hard to do. Because if you look really hard, usually your voice follows it, right? So if you look really mad. The other thing is if you have a smile on your face, it's hard to be really bad, right? So it's an interesting thing in phenomenon in humans is that really our expressions follow what we're thinking on the inside. While you're having a conversation, do not look at the person in the eyes, look at their shoes, right? How many of you have been in conversations where somebody's not looking and you're at you, right? Very hard, very hard. While having a conversation, point your finger at that person every time you're talking. And it's funny to watch some of this as you go through. If we had more time, I would have done it with the group. Carry on a conversation with intense interest, lean forward, right? That leaning forward. Only talk while you're touching their arm. How are you today? Are things going well? Right? And so it's those kind of things. But those are all different pieces of conversation. Now that includes some verbal, but it's the nonverbal stuff that actually triggers the emotions. If somebody is having a bad day, you can read it, right? Yes? Right? For sure. So the other piece I wanted to just mention to you is studies have shown, and there's some new studies that actually show it quicker, but that you have about 3 seconds when you see somebody on whether they like you or you like them and whether you would do business with them. Isn't that interesting? 3 seconds. So your words mean nothing. They're making determinations based on biases, past experience, et cetera, et cetera. So if all of a sudden you don't like somebody because they look a certain way, there's a certain thing you have to overcome right away. 3 seconds. And there's some studies that show that it's even quicker than that. But I like the 3 seconds because it's still a quick time. And if you have 3 seconds, all of a sudden your body language is so much more important. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And if you think of this as a coach, seek first to understand, then to be understood. A lot of times we get this backwards as a PM. As a leader, we get this backwards. Well, you need to understand me first, then I'll understand you. Everybody thinks like I do, of course. Everybody believes what I believe. Everybody thinks the way I think. So I'm perfect, right? Maybe not. I use something called the weight principle quite a bit, and I want to show you how I use this. I actually put on, if I'm in a coaching or sometimes if I'm even in a meeting as a project manager, because I still do a little bit of that, I write WAIT on the top corner. Does anybody know what it stands for? Sorry? Yeah, perfect. Yes. Why am I talking? What's the reason? Why am I talking? Do I have so much knowledge that I have to share it right now? And there are times that you may have to. You may have to be the first one sharing. You may have to be the first one talking. But if you talk a lot more than everybody else, the question is, why am I talking? So who would like a gift? Carol, anybody got their hands up? Who would like a gift? What these are they're called Epiphany cards. And I've created them a number of years ago. And what they are is there's 52 cards in them, 52 questions, so one card for every week. And basically then you can take them and answer them and ponder them. And they're just kind of powerful questions on pictures. That's all they are. Okay. Who likes having gifts? Right? The greatest thing is one of the best gifts you can give as a coach, as a leader, is the gift of listening. And what is listening? Well, talk a little bit about that, but you want to eliminate distractions. So having your cell phone out while you're having a conversation is probably not a great idea of giving the gift of listening. right? It's not a great gift. How many of you have been behind your computer and you're working on that spreadsheet or you're working on that plan, and all of a sudden somebody walks in and they start asking you questions and you're like, yes, yeah, okay, yeah, right? That's not the gift of listening. So you need to be a good listener. Eye contact, being engaged. Wow, really? I didn't know that. Yes, yes, okay, right on. Anything else, right? And then there are times where you need to clarify and you'll need to rephrase. So to have some understanding, to make sure that you understood what they said. So if there are concerns and that kind of thing, you want to rephrase what they said and then clarify. Do I have it right? Is that what you said? 3 levels of listening. First level, internal listening. This is the one we're at all the time. We are at all the time. It's where somebody talks to you and all you're really thinking is how this affects me. I'll give you an example. Somebody telling me about a ski trip they just made to Lake Louise. And I think, I should go to Lake Louise. That would be nice. Yeah. Last time I was at Lake Louise, the snow wasn't great. I like sunshine a little bit better than Lake Louise. But that's the internal listening. So if somebody's sharing with you about their project, all you're thinking about is, okay, how does that affect us? Right? Focused listening is now about them. And it takes intent to focus on them. Same scenario. They're talking about their skiing. Instead of you thinking about, well, I should go to the ski trip. The focused listening is all about, wow, was there powder? Was the powder good? Oh, who'd you go with? How many runs did you get in? So now you're asking them about their experience. Another example of focused listening is that if somebody's sharing you about a challenge or an illness, you're really focused in. You're focused on them, focused on what's happening in their life. And they don't necessarily need you to solve it, but you're just listening. How many of you have been at the end of a conversation and they say, thank you, that was such a great conversation we had. And you said very, very little, right? It's that focused listening. Global listening is that focused listening plus a little bit. It's now what's happening in the room, what's happening in the environment. So all of a sudden, they have a different tone in their voice. They have excitement in their voice, or they have sadness in their voice, or they're hesitant. They hesitate to share something. You can ask about that. So that's the global listening. The other thing is, how many of you ever walked into a room and you walk in the room and you know that something just happened? Nobody says anything, but you know that something just happened. There was a disagreement, or maybe they were talking about you. But all of a sudden it's dead silence or something, and you walk in that room and you know something happened. That's kind of the global listening. Verbal communication. Words are important. Often it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I do some disc personality things, but I won't go into a lot of the detail about that. But I want to just point out, if you know your audience a little bit, if somebody's more outgoing and task-oriented, they want you to be boom, boom, boom. They want you to talk to the point, get it done, let's get going, get out of my way, let's move. Somebody's more outgoing and people-oriented, they want to have stories. Let's have some fun first, right? Let's talk about some things first. How was your weekend, right? The outgoing task-oriented people don't give a crap about your weekend. We're at work. Get it done. Let's go, right? If you're now more reserved and people-oriented, they're great team players. They want to be, okay, how can we do this together? If you're very aggressive, the boom, boom, boom with somebody who's very reserved and people-oriented, they're going to pull back. Somebody who's more reserved and task-oriented, they're now going to want the details. So all of a sudden, when you're communicating in words, if they want to know the details, what are you going to say? Well, this is what we're going to do. This is why we need to do it. We have 10 days to get it done. You say that to one of the other ones, and they will react differently. But somebody who wants that detail, have you ever had people who say, why? Why are we doing that? Why? What? How long do we have to do that? Right? They want that. Now, there are some project managers that I've worked with in my past, and they have a 5,000 line project plan, right? And that's okay. It works for them. I couldn't do that. But yet, the detailed people actually do. How you speak, the tone, the speed, the volume, all go into play. If I walked up here and I just said, okay, we're going to talk today and we're going to have a lot of fun, right? No, can't, right? Doesn't work, right? But it's the same way when you're talking to your team. You are either going to bring energy to your team or you're going to take it away. What do you want to do? And think about that. Even when you're down, they're going to reflect what you bring. So, and words can build up or tear down. You can say the exact same words, but they have totally different meaning. Of course, I'll get that done for you. Of course, I'll get that done for you. Right? Same words, different meaning. So words can either build up or tear down. And how you use those words will affect your team, affect those around you. Difficult conversations and messages. We talked about this, actually, they talked about this just this morning. Don't avoid them. Talk about the elephant in the room. Talk about the tension that's there. Don't avoid them. And by the way, silence, you heard the word silence can be deadly. Silence is deadly. People make up their own stories if you're silent. I don't know whether any of you are fans of Brené Brown, but she talks about this, that people make up stories. People will make up stories about just out of silence because all of a sudden now you don't want to talk about, the steering committee and what they said or whatever else. And they say, all of a sudden now your project's in trouble because somebody thought that's what happened, right? Oh, they had an emergency steering committee. Our project's in trouble. Oh, no. Instead of you sharing to say, well, no, they just wanted to talk about resetting and maybe what next year is going to be, right? But your silence might be the story cause of something else going on. So not sharing, others will make up their own story. When we're talking about communication, when I'm listening, whose responsibility is it that I understand what's being said? Mine, right? Mine. When I'm talking, whose responsibility is it that I'm being understood? Mine. So it's mine, both ways. Now, here's the fun thing as a leader. When I'm the leader, whose responsibility is that we are communicating effectively? Mine. That really sucks, right? That's not easy. When you actually take on that responsibility, you have your project team, and you might have a project team of 6, or you might have it of 600. Whose responsibility is it? That sucks. That's not easy, right? So it's one of those tough ones from a communication point of view. Why strive? To be an excellent communicator. By the way, excellent communication does not guarantee you success. It helps, it goes a long way, but it's not a guarantee. It's still not a guarantee. Misunderstanding versus understanding. Consistency versus inconsistency. Clarity versus confusion. Harmony versus conflict. Productive team versus unproductive team. I can tell you this, if you have very, very poor communication, you will have misunderstanding, you will have confusion, you will have inconsistency. So your communication skills as a coach, as a leader, are so important. And there are times when you need to combine means of communication as well, and we all know that. I wanted to point out the last line of this slide. Somebody shared this with me, and it's such a great one. Email is for information. Conversation is for relationship. So if you kind of think that through, email is for information. Conversation is for relationship. 5 keys. Positive nonverbal communication. We talked about that. What you portray. Be present and give the gift of listening. Acknowledge and appreciate the emotional reality. So if there's tension, acknowledge it. If people are upset, acknowledge it. If people are really stressed, acknowledge it. Ask intelligent, powerful questions, which is what we're going to go to right next. Obtain different perspectives. I need 2 volunteers. I want to say what perspectives are, points of view. I need 2 volunteers just to come up front. Who would, really quick. Just come on up, 2 of you. Just jump up. One more. Please, please. Yes. Great, come on up. Just come on right up here, right in front. Okay. All right. Yep. Go back to back. Just go back to back. All right. So I'm going to ask you a question. What's your name? Dan. So Dan, I want you to look straight forward and tell me exactly what you see.
I see a window into the arena.
Okay, keep going. What else?
I see lights on the ceiling through the window. I see a curtain. I see lots of people to my left.
Okay.
I see a giant beam.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. What's your name? Alex. Alex, tell us what you see.
A door,
Okay.
exit sign, lights, wall,
Okay. Anything else?
thermostat.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks. You guys sit down. Grab each one of you, grab one of those. Thank you. Thanks for your help. Give them a hand. So here's a question for you. Who was right? Both, right? So when we look at perspectives, it's about where we're coming from, where we're standing, what our experiences are, what our background is, et cetera, et cetera. So now, all of a sudden, when we have disagreements, we have different perspectives. Who can be right? Who's wrong? A lot of times we think that, well, again, because it's my perspective, I'm right. The other person's got to be wrong. But yet they're seeing something totally different. I use this many times because I want to bring home that just because there's different perspectives within your team does not mean that they're wrong. They're just looking at things differently. So honor those perspectives and work through them, ask questions about them, and that's where we're going next. Ask the right questions at the right time. What did WAIT stand for? Why am I talking? Thank you. That was great. Asking powerful questions. Why? You want to try to eliminate or lessen the yes or no answers. Are there times that you want yes or no answers? Yes, there are times that you want that. Open-ended questions. You want to draw out discussion. You want to be conscious of leading questions. And leading questions are interesting because a lot of times we ask open-ended questions, but we want to lead them down the path because we know what the right answer is. Right? So a lot of times that happens. And try to eliminate those. Let's do an exercise. If I asked you this first question, is your project team performing well? What would you say? Yes. Yes or no, right? Okay. Anybody else willing to share a little bit about your project? Just a wee little bit. You don't need to go into detail. Anybody? Okay, that's fine. Tell me about your project team. How do you feel about this one? Right? Better question, right? And it should get some discussion. Well, I feel like it's going well. I feel like it's good. But what if I asked you this question? If this project team were a weather system, what would it be? All of a sudden now, because you use an analogy or you use a metaphor, be more specific, all of a sudden now you get a whole different conversation. Well, it's a hurricane. Well, why do you say it's a hurricane? Because of this. It's a lightning storm. And sometimes, by the way, you ask this and you think you know where you're going and you don't. So something like this one, it's a lightning storm. Well, why do you say it's a lightning storm? Because we have so many go lives. It's a flash, 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 flash. Versus the first thing you jump to is because we have lightning strikes, right? So, any volunteers? What if it were a weather system? What would it be? Anybody? Anybody willing? Anybody brave? Yes. What's the question?
So when dealing with, for example, a neurodivergent or a very literal thinker, a question like this, I guess my question is what's the validity of the response? Or are you going to elicit the type of response that you're looking for from those types of individuals?
So the question is, what kind of response are you looking for, right? With an open-ended question, you're looking for discussion. So if they can't relate to that, maybe you go back to, okay, let's talk about the project. What do you feel is going well about the project? That kind of thing. So if you have somebody who really struggles with, the metaphor or that kind of thing, but I've found in my past there are very few people that won't. They may not like the metaphor, but they'll either use it or they'll go to a different metaphor. And I've actually, in my coaching, said, okay, if you don't like this, what would you like to do? Well, if it were an animal, it would be a lion. So some people don't like the metaphor. Some people are very sports oriented, so that you might say, what if this were a sports team, what kind of sports team would it be? It all depends on who your audience is. Does that help you at all? Okay. Animal, vehicle, restaurant. The one that works really well, just so you know, is that a country. If your project were a country, or if your team were a country, what would it be? The other one that I like is if your family were a weather system, what would it be? Right? There's some good chuckles there, so that tells me there'd be some good answers. And what you're trying to do with open-ended questions is basically trying to discuss, get a discussion going, understanding different perspectives, understanding where people are coming from. Here are some other ones. What is the culture or atmosphere you want to create together? Culture beats strategy all the time. If you think that, okay, our strategy was we're going to have a nice, calm project, blah, 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 da, 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 whatever that strategy is. If your culture is opposite of that, you will never have that strategy. I think the saying, and I think it was Drucker, I think, if I remember, and I may be wrong, but strategy eats culture eats strategy for breakfast. So culture and your atmosphere is very important of your project. What would help the team flourish? What happens within the team when things get hard? How do you want to be together? How do you want to behave when it gets hard? And by the way, almost every project that I've been on has a hard time. Some harder than others. What is the definition of success? Is it just the go live? What's the definition of success? What are some other examples? I want you to participate now. What are some other examples of powerful questions? Just spit them out. I'll try it. If you say it loud enough, I'll just repeat it. Think about for your project. Yes. Okay, so is it on track? And what kind of answer would you have? Okay. Yep. So how could you turn that a little bit more for more discussion rather than a yes or no? Okay. Okay. Yep. Yep. But you're still getting a yes or no answer. How would you get discussion going around that? How could you reframe that question? How exactly, right? How are we going to be on track? Or how are we going to achieve it? Anything else? Anybody else? What's the good, the bad, the ugly? Yep, absolutely. Yeah. How do you feel about it? That's a great one. Yeah. Mm, always great, right? What keeps you up at night, right? How many of you have been brave enough to ask that to your sponsor? Yeah. Yeah. Any news that you want to share? Yep, for sure. Yep, yep, for sure. Yep, 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 for sure. Here are some other ones. What makes a powerful team? What is your sense of a cooperative spirit among the team members? What frustrations do you encounter with the team? What would be possible for us if this team fired on all cylinders? And again, remember, this is all with a foundation of listening, of communication. Don't ask open-ended questions if you're not going to listen. Okay? I'll repeat that one more time. Do not ask open-ended questions if you're not going to listen. So if you don't have time to have a discussion, don't ask open-ended questions. This isn't, how are you feeling today? And then you walk away. Oh, I'm fine. Okay, we're good, right? These are to get discussions. Being curious. Being curious shows that you care, that you're engaged, and it goes right along with open-ended questions. I'm just curious. Why do you say that? I'm just curious. What's your next step? So if you are having a more difficult kind of question that you're trying to get across, this is a great tool. I'm just curious. Why did you do it that way? I'm just curious. How could you do it better next time? Or how could we do it better next time? So those words, those key words, I'm just curious, are so important. And it goes right along with the open-ended questions. Goal setting. Usually, everybody knows about SMART goals. They know about even your project plan. Even the project plan is a set type of goals, right? You have different milestones and you want to achieve them by very specific times, etc. What about the informal goal setting? And at the beginning of a project, you could do this, but you can even do it as a reset piece for your own project if you want to. Individually, go to everybody and say, what do you want to achieve from this project? What do you want to get out of the project? And it's interesting because you'll get things like, well, I want the new skill set. I want the experience on my resume. I want the hours because I want to get paid. I'm a consultant and I want the billable hours. That's why I'm here. Or something like, well, this is the next step for me internally to go on to a different project, whatever that is. But what it does do is it gives you any hidden motivators. So if you have somebody who really wants to develop a new skill, all of a sudden as a project manager, what do you want to help them with? The new skill. You want to position them to achieve whatever they're looking for, right? So the other thing around that is what will you do? When will you do it? Right? Those kind of things. From your point of view as a PM in goal setting, what are the areas of the greatest challenge? And again, this is a takeaway for you to kind of think through and ponder. That's why I have a lot of details on the slide, because you can go back to these. What, as a PM, what in terms of reaching their goals, what are some of the challenges? And you have an influence on some of that. This is a great quote. A gentleman named Matt Cruz said it, and I tried to actually Google it and re-find it, but I couldn't even, it's not even there anymore. Stuff happens every day. By focusing on how I react, respond, and recover to the stuff with integrity, key with integrity, those who look to me for leadership have quit worrying about what's going to happen and are more confident that together we can deal with anything. What a great position of leadership when you have a team that knows that they don't have to worry about all the crap, because together you can deal with anything. Right? It kind of excites me when I hear about a team that's like that. Right? That they like each other so much, they trust each other so much that they don't worry about all the crap, all the noise, all the confusion, because they know together we're going to figure it all out. Being a champion and a challenge. There are times that you need to champion and times you need to be the challenger. So as a coach, and when I say challenge, I don't mean aggressively, but it's a soft push. As a coach, first to champion. As a leader, as a project manager, to champion. I have the best team. They are fantastic. They work so hard. Thank you for being such a great team member. I build them up in front of the leadership, especially if they're internal. They've been a vital piece of my team. So especially if they're an internal employee on your team, build them up as long as they are, right? Don't lie, but build them up. And then when you start challenging, it's a soft push move forward, right? It's that I'm just curious, or it's that how can we move that forward? And I'll give you an example. I had a project I was working on, and the tasks were very start to end. And that was by design. It was kind of designed that way. But we were falling a little bit behind because everyone was getting a little bit longer. So you can see how the plan would keep going. So I challenged the team and I said, okay, we need to kind of catch up some time. How can we do some stuff in parallel? And immediately the answer was, well, we can't. So when you do a challenge, you're going to get three responses. One, they're going to accept it and say, yeah, we'll do it. Two, they'll negotiate. Well, we could, but we could do this, do that, right? Or three, you're going to get a rejection. Your response to the rejection is, well, why can't we? So I asked the team to take that away, and let's meet again next week in one of our meetings. We'll discuss it next week. But in the meantime, I'd like you to really think about how we could do it. What are the barriers that we could move, Sure enough, they came back a week later, and we got some tasks in parallel. But it's those kind of things. It's being that challenge that you have to do. And there are times individually, if you've had bad behavior, you've got to challenge the bad behavior. As again, you can't avoid the bad conversations. The other thing, maybe I'll just go back here. The other thing I do want you, another thing I want to remind you of, and you can write this down in big, bold letters. Be kind, get things done. In that order. Be kind, get things done. Right? If you go in that order, you will be successful. But be kind first and then get things done. Why is it important to get things done? Because we still have deliverables. We still have things we have to get done. Right? But be kind, then get things done. Building rapport. So I'm going to go really quickly now because we're going to quickly run out of time. But positional leadership, influential leadership. Positional leadership is your title. Being in a position of leadership, position of authority, etc. Influential leadership is who you are. Leading by having respect. They're going to follow you through thick and thin. Which style achieves better results? Sorry? Influential? Yeah. I think in the long term it does. Are there times where you have to have positional leadership? Yes. The trick is recognizing when. When to do the positional leadership, say, guys, I love you, gotta get it done. Influential leadership, using your influence, your respect that you've built, the trust that you've built with your team. How do you build rapport? Spending time together. By the way, just as an aside, it's proven that the best way to build a relationship is over a meal, over food. Not even just a coffee, but over food. So if you're trying to build a relationship, and I have something called a relationship bank account, but we won't have time for that. But over food to build relationship. How do you show empathy? Being kind, knowing what they're going through. How do you respond when personal issues interrupt your plans? So here's two examples, actually three examples. First one, had a lady who we were in a crisis piece of our project, and we had meetings every day from 3:30 to 4:30. What was going on, who's doing what we're doing tomorrow, what we get done today, etc. At 4 o'clock, she got up and left. Didn't make a fuss or anything, and so this went on for a few days. I went to her and I said, "Listen, I noticed that you're leaving at 4 o'clock. What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I have daycare. I have to take transit home, go pick up my kid, and if anytime after 5 o'clock in 5-minute increments, I'm actually charged dollars for every 5 minutes I'm late." I get it, right? Is it going to affect my project? Maybe a little, right? Had another lady who had a husband who had a heart condition, went for heart surgery. First of all, she was stressed at work. Second of all, she took 2 weeks off while he had heart surgery and then recovered and everything else. And then when she came back, she was still stressed. Did it affect my project plan? Yeah. Because it was a small team. We had 6 of us. How I respond to that is how I show it empathy. How it affects your project plan. If it throws it to crap, how do you respond? Do you have empathy? By the way, don't fake it. People will read it from everywhere. Do not fake it. If you don't have empathy, don't fake it. Be upfront with it, but don't fake it. Intuition, your gut feeling, those things that are not being said. Read the situation or discussion, read the room. This is where that global listening comes into play. Use that intuition. If you're feeling something, this is the safe way to share it. And I want to share this with you. The safe way to share it. I may be wrong, but I am sensing that you're stressed. I may be wrong, but I'm stressed. I'm sensing that you're falling behind. I may be wrong, but I'm sensing da 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 da. Why do you say it that way? Because any other way you say it, I'm seeing that you're stressed. Like hell I am, right? You're setting yourself up for a discussion. I may be wrong. And by the way, you may be wrong. Because we do read things wrong. But using your intuition, don't be afraid to use it, but be careful with it. I may be wrong, but I am sensing. Recognize strengths. Everybody has strengths. We need to recognize them. What are the strengths of your individual team members? Do you know? A lot of us don't. This is a hard one, right? If I asked you, this is a great question, by the way. This is a powerful question. What is your superpower? Anybody have an answer? Sorry, getting things done. That's a great one. I had somebody else share that making complex things, sharing them simply. Right? What a great superpower. Another one is I am the most organized person. Right? What is your superpower? Would you put a little mark on just somewhere on your notes that basically says, okay, I need to answer that for me. And then think about what the superpower is of your team. How do you find their strengths? You watch and learn them, you ask about it, and sometimes you need to help them. And then position everyone for success with their strengths. If their strengths are creativity, finding creative solutions, working with the business to figure out all the processes and everything else, putting them into a documentation process is not going to work. What is their strengths? Provide a structure. Most project managers are good at structure, right? We have all kinds of structures. We have status meetings, we have project meetings, we have agendas, we have this, we have this, we have this. Oh, by the way, here's my project plan, here's where we are, da, da, da. A lot of structure. Keys to establishing some of the structures up front. What are the ground rules for your team? What do you expect from them? Do you expect them 7 till 5, 8 till 4? What is it, right? What are the expectations? By the way, everybody walks in with expectations and assumptions. You also need to figure out what everybody's assumptions are. My assumptions is that we will X. So have those discussions. If you're in the middle of a project and you're having some issues, go back to this. Okay, what are our ground rules? What are our expectations and assumptions? And by the way, you need to think about equal partnership. Just because everybody's got different roles. Yes, you're going to lead as a project manager, but everybody's important in your team. Everybody has a role to play. If you think about hockey, there's trainers, there's video coaches, right? But they need them all to be successful, right? There's the stars of the team. Everybody's got roles to play. And have regular check-ins. And when I say regular check-ins, I don't mean check-ups. Check-ins. What's working for you? What's not working? What are your obstacles? What's in your way? What's driving you crazy? Those kind of check-ins. And here's a check-in for you personally. What would make your team more successful? How much trust do you have in your team? What would make every individual on your team flourish? What would make you flourish? And what actions do you need to take in the next week? So out of all this day, you're going to walk out and say, there's these things I want to do. Do them in the next week. If you don't do them in the next week, studies show, if you don't take action of what you've learned, you'll lose it. You won't do it. In the next week, what actions do you need to take? And that is it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gerald. So do we have any questions for Gerald right now in the room?
I think the slide deck is already available, actually, or it will be very, very shortly.
I have my question here. I'm here. You talk about the aspect of listening. How do you deal with someone that continuously talk, and you don't want to give the impression you want to cut them off, and you still want to listen? How do you deal with that?
Yep. I've done it with a few different ways. Some of the different ways you can do that is, one is you actually personally ask them to say, you know what, I love your viewpoints, but can you just wait and let's have the rest of the team talk? So wait, and then we'll make sure that I give you time at the end so that you're hearing the whole team. That's one thing. The other thing is that and different opportunities, it's just a matter of what it is you're trying to accomplish. Like if you have them talk, right, is it taking everybody else or not? Because you can let people talk, but try to focus them then, right? How can you focus them on something different, right? Because some people love to hear their voice. And they think that, there are people who like to share everything they know because they think the world needs to know everything they know, right? And so it's a matter of how do you manage that? And a lot of times you want to just make sure that, especially if they're trying to be part of the team, ask them to just be the last one to share.
Gerald, we have a few questions in Huva, unless someone in here wants to ask right away. How can you coach someone who doesn't want to be coached?
So the first one is that if you're actually thinking you're coaching them and they don't want to be coached, don't even try. That's the first thing. The other thing is you can use some of the coaching skills and they don't even know they're being coached, right? And so it's a matter of asking them the questions, having them develop, etc. So we have time for one more because we got 59 seconds.
We have one here that is how do you deal with someone who has outbursts of emotions and they're kind of in that state of fight or flight? How do you coach them?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I would go back to what's happening. Is it one person? Is there conflict going on? Is there trust issues? Is there respect issues? What is it that's going on? And then try to address it. If it's only one person, then pull that person aside and have those chats. Okay. Anybody, if you have questions, more than happy to talk. I'll be around all afternoon. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to. And I'm always open for a cup of coffee.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gerald, for this excellent presentation. I think we all learned a lot about coaching and leadership, and this is a reminder that people can provide feedback for the session using the Whova app, and you'll find the contact information for Gerald there. And then we're going to be, in the next couple of minutes, switching between sessions. So we would like to ask you to go and do that. Thank you for joining us.